الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. We start, or rather we finished the book or the chapter entitled Kitaab an-Nadhr. We concluded the chapter in Kitaab At-Tawheed by the great Imam Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah. The chapter was entitled From Shirk or Polytheisms to take an oath, to take a vow for other than Allah Ta'ala. We finished the masail or the matters in which the great Imam had mentioned in the end of the chapter. As we continue in the other aspects of worship, which explains the meaning of La ilaha illallah in a detailed manner. As we know, what is in detail of La ilaha illallah, as we know, no doubt, what comes along with that is also learning the conditions and also learning the various types of worship which are very detrimental of what one is supposed to fulfill, and also which will come as a result of falling in to giving these huquq or giving these rights of Allah. Because all of these, if you find, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, in all these chapters, is given a tafsir of Allah, a tafsir La ilaha illallah, and also laying down which are the rights of Allah. As far as in the aspect of what? Of worship, of the ibadah, which is only these huquq or these particular rights and these particular ibadat, so these type of worships, only is exclusively for Allah Ta'ala alone. And that to give this right to other than Him will come as a result of it, one nullifying his Islam or his or her Islam will be nullified if one of these rights are given to other than Allah Ta'ala. For verily, I forgot to say that. I'm always forgetting the dates. It's what Friday, August the 10th of the time now, 7/18 actually. In regards to what coincides with the calendar of the Hijri calendar, which is, I think, the 29th, if I'm not mistaken, the 29th of Dhul Qa'dah, or Dhul Qa'dah. You can say either one. Until Maghrib. Tonight will be the 29th. The 29th of, after Maghrib, will be Dhul Qa'dah. Rahmakallah. Dhul Qa'dah, Rahmakallah. Which coincides with what? 1439, the Hijrah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wasalam. And, very good. Rahmakallah. In regards to what we mentioned in finalizing, closing out the final chapter, we talked about another and its different types. So that chapter of another, ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, as we know, is also a type of worship, as we concluded, saying that in its origin, it is disliked, and you'll find no ibadah, or no type of worship from the other worship, or the various types of worship of Allah, or the various worships of Allah Ta'ala, that is detested in its origin, except this particular worship which is called another. Rather, you'll find in which the great Imam Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah rahimahullah, as we talked about, leans towards its impermissibility, due to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ clearly saying, "La tandhiru," do not take a vow. In another narration it says it does not bring any good, as we talked about. You'll also find the great Imam Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen likewise leaning towards that same statement as we clarified last class, right everyone? As we said all these matters are what? In order to show that it's discouraged. If we could say ala al-aqal al-ahwal, when the least, if we could say, is that this matter is what? Detested. That one should not do it, but one, if he's to do it, then it's binding upon him to carry out certain matters. For number one, if he does a vow, it has to be for Allah. Secondly, like we talked about, after that, if he does a vow, it has to be what? It has to be obedience. Thirdly, also likewise, it has to be in his possession or in his ability, or whether it be in his physical ability or whatever you want, or it be in his possession. It has to be something he owns. He cannot take a vow if he does not own it, or if it's not in his possession, or if he does not have an ability to do it. If he does not have the ability, then what? Then likewise he does not make that type of vow, or he doesn't perform that type of vow. Unless, like we said, if the person has the ability where it's in his possession, or he has the physical capability, then it's binding upon him to what? To fulfill it. Or if he cannot fulfill it, then what? Then he have to perform what they call kafaratul yameen. Kafaratul yameen is what, everyone? Expiation of. Kafaratul yameen is number one, is what, everyone? You have to feed 10 poor people, or impoverished people who are poor. From the middle course, he will what? Feed his family. Or what? Or clothe them, or free a slave. Or a concubine if it's a girl, if it's a female, it'll be a concubine. But in regards to what those type of expiation that one would offer if he's not able to fulfill his vow. If he's not able to fulfill his vow, then we said that person will have to perform an expiation. That expiation is called kafaratul yameen, which has all been mentioned in Surah Al-Ma'idah. Surah Al-Ma'idah, and I think it's ayah number 89 if I'm not mistaken, right? Ayah number 89 is Surah Al-Ma'idah, where Allah Ta'ala lays down what is kafaratul yameen. Kafaratul yameen is what one would offer if he cannot fulfill a vow, or if it's a vow of disobedience. Except that if it's what? If it's shirk. If he says it's upon me for Abdul Qadir Jilani, or if it's for Badawi, or it's for all these other different types of people who is other than Allah, then that will nullify one's Islam, and what will be upon him is what? Is tawbah. So what, an expiation wouldn't even be needed if it's polytheism. If he commits polytheism, then his Islam is nullified, then he will have to make tawbah. And expiation in this particular instance has no benefit. طيب. We also mentioned a hadith of what we said in last class, and I forgot to tell everyone. There's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ which is in Abu Dawood. It says, أن امرأة قالت يا رسول الله إني نذرت أن أضرب على رأسك بالدف. O Messenger of Allah, verily I took a vow that I would strike upon your head with the duf, or with the duff. فقال صلى الله عليه وسلم أوفي أو وفي, in one narration, وأوفي بنذرك. So the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said to her, أوفي بنذرك, fulfill your vow. أوفي بنذرك. أوفي بنذرك. So the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said this to this woman, fulfill your vow. A person would think a woman now striking the duff above the head of the Messenger of Allah. There's the great Imam Shaykh Muhammad Aman al-Jami, rahimahullah. A lot of people think when they said that the woman strikes the duff above the head, meaning that the woman came above the head of the Prophet ﷺ and started striking the duff directly. The great Imam Shaykh Muhammad Aman al-Jami, when he explained this hadith in Kitaab At-Tawheed, he said that's not the meaning of it. He said the meaning of it is, for example, that she would just stand up in the air and it wouldn't be actually touching him, and just striking the duff over his head, just striking the duff, which is above at the top, but not actually touching his head, but just striking it at the top of his head, just striking it. But it doesn't mean that it was actually the duff was touching him, where she was standing on top of his head and she was beating it. That's not the meaning of the hadith. Certain people will probably think based upon the narration. He said that's not the meaning. The meaning more or less is that she put it high above his head and she would just strike it. And that was it. In which was nothing wrong with that, in which the Prophet ﷺ allowed her to do. But it wasn't actually a meaning in which she put the duff and she was touching his head and just started beating the duff on top of the head of the Prophet ﷺ. That wasn't the meaning of the hadith. So the hadith is in which what was explained here, which we mentioned, that's the meaning of it. So even the great Imam, Shaykh Muhammad Aman al-Jami, you can share with the book with the brothers. So that was the meaning of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, in which the woman struck the duff above the head of the Prophet ﷺ, when she took a vow to do it. And the Prophet ﷺ did not consider it what? Disobedience. Why? It was just merely above his head, like we said. It wasn't touching his head, but it was like above, or at the top, or high above his head. And just because something is high above one's head or above his head doesn't mean it's touching it. Not necessarily. So that was the meaning of the hadith. It could be over top of the window. Somebody's on the window and they're beneath, striking the duff over the head. That's considered at the top of the head of the person. It has to be, doesn't necessarily be touching the individual. So this particular narration of the Prophet ﷺ was mentioned, and also Imam al-Albani also declared it to be authentic. So the narration is authentic. And this is what we discussed from last class, in which we talked about, and I wanted to say to the brothers before we move on to the new chapter. So here in this particular instance, what do you notice? That the Prophet ﷺ still commanded this particular woman, or the Sahabiyya, to fulfill her vow. And it was not considered something of disobedience. But if a person now does not feel that he can fulfill it because it's either disobedience, or if it's something that is not in his ability, either it not being in his possession, or he doesn't have the physical capability to fulfill his vow, then he will perform what they call kafarat yamin. You'll find the similarities which we'll discuss. It's going to come in the following chapters, don't worry. And he's speaking about what they call al-yamin, which is to swear by Allah. And what I talked about last class, I said from the last class that take a vow and an oath. They are similar in certain instances and they're different in certain instances. Where they're similar and what they come together in is, inshallah, don't worry, it's going to come, but you can write it down if you want. That they are the same as far as in their expiation. They're the same as far as in their what? Expiation. Meaning, another and al-yamin. So another is to take a vow or make a vow to do something. And we talked about the difference, right, everyone? To make a vow, to take a vow is to say out of one, or for one to verbally say, it's upon me for Allah to do such and such. If Allah does this, then it's upon me for Allah to perform i'tikaf al-Masjid al-Haram. Or it's upon me for Allah to sell my house as sadaqah. Or to give away all my clothes as sadaqah, or what have you. That's a vow. If Allah does this for me, then I'll do this. That's a vow. That's a vow. That's to take a vow. Especially that's called a vow that is mu'allaq. That's mu'allaq. That is conditional. And that's usually what is the meaning of a vow when a person takes it. They make it a condition. If Allah does this for me, then I'll do this. If Allah does this for me, I'll do this. If Allah cures my sick, I'll do this. If Allah cures my wife, I'll do this. If Allah cures my mother, then I'll do this. It's like a condition. It's called another mu'allaq. It's called a vow that is conditional. It's conditional. This right here is exceptionally and especially what the ulama say is haram. Especially. And from them is Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah that they mention to say that especially this type of another isn't permissible. But generally, it is dispraised and is discouraged that one take a vow. Because like we said, number one, Allah Ta'ala did not make that particular affair obligatory upon you to perform at all. And you made it binding upon yourself. In which Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala did not make it compulsory or binding or an obligation or duty for you to perform. Then you came and made this affair binding upon yourself. But at any rate, for those type of nadhr, that is how, number one, how they're similar. So one, what they call a nadhr or vow, and an oath, when you swear by Allah, they're similar in the aspects of the kafara of the expiation. So that's how they were, everyone. That's how they're similar. So if one wanted to break his vow, and one wanted to break his oath because he seen something that was better as a result of him breaking it, then he would break his oath or break his vow and make an expiation. Except in the affair if it's polytheism. If it's polytheism, then it makes tawbah, and an expiation would not suffice. Rather, if a person said, for example, it's upon me for Sayyidul Hussein, if Sayyidul Hussein cures my sick, or Sayyid al-Badawi cures my sick, and He bestows upon me good health, meaning for my wife and my kids, then it's upon me for Sayyid al-Badawi, if it's upon me for Hussein, to fast a week straight. If this right here, if one does it, then likewise we say here in this particular instance, this is polytheism. Islam is nullified. So a mere expiation here would not suffice. Rather, it's binding upon one now to make what? Tawbah. Same thing as far as Yameen. Al-Yameen has some details in it. A vow, like we said, is worship. Even though swearing by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is worship, no doubt. It's an ibadah. Now this is where they're different, as I'm going to explain right now. So number one, taking a vow and an oath, they're similar. Number one, we said to what, everyone? As far as an expiation. Another example of that, we already gave an example of a vow. What about a what? Swearing by Allah. First it says, Wallahi, I'm going to do this. Wallahi, Wallahi, it's the same thing. Wallahi, I'll pray all my sunan, or I'll pray tahajjud every night for the rest of my life. That's what you call what? You made an oath. You took an oath. Right. In this particular instance, now, let's just say a person can't fulfill what he swore by Allah by. He can't fulfill it. Right? Right. In this instance, same thing. He would perform what they call what? Kafarat al-Yameen, which is mentioned in Surah Al-Ma'idah. Well, Allah Ta'ala says what we just said a couple of minutes ago, that you will have to what? Break your oath, what they call hinth, or hanith, meaning the person, he broke it. He broke his vow, or he broke his vow, or he broke his oath. It's called hinth. We'll talk about that, inshallah. It's a chapter that comes all in it. Don't worry. But at any rate, once you break it, just to put everything in simple terms, that once one breaks it, then what, everyone? Then he has to perform a kafara, expiation, either by feeding 10 impoverished people from a middle course of what he would feed his family, or to clothe them, or to free a slave or concubine. So that's how a vow and swearing by Allah are all what? In this instance specifically is what? Similar. They're similar. Where they're now يختلفان or يتفارقا or يتفارقان يتغايران. How do they now differ? They differ in its asl, in the origin. If a person now performs a vow for other than Allah, that's shirk, that's polytheism. What type of polytheism? We say that here it is major polytheism. That's the origin. Like, what if a person swore by Allah, other than Allah? What's the origin? It's a major polytheism or is it a minor polytheism? It's still shirk. Of course it's shirk. Major or minor, swearing by other than Allah. The origin of it. The origin. Also. The origin that we would say, number one, it has details in it. It could be major or it could be minor, depending on the glorification of what they swore by other than Allah by, depending on whether or not their heart is totally connected with that thing. Number one, what I mean by that is, if they believe that totally, that thing conducts in its existence, what they swore by other than Allah by, like I swear by the stars in the sky, if they say that, I swear by all the stars in the sky, or I swear by me being a what they call a Leo, or what they call Scorpion, or all these other different signs. I swear by the sign that is in my sign that is in the stars in the sky. If they say this, if they believe that star in itself conducts in its existence alone, that's major polytheism. And if they swore by the stars, but the ta'zeem of their heart, believing that it is not totally dominant and controlled, but rather it's something that just happened to just habitually happen upon the tongue because one is accustomed, acclimated to saying it. Here in this instance is what, everyone? It's a minor. So it has some details in it. Is it clear what I'm saying? Is it clear what I'm saying? So in this instance, in this regard, they're slightly different. Another is clear. If a person takes an oath for other than Allah, that's major. It's major polytheism, of course. In regards to what is swearing by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or other than Allah, swearing by other than Allah ta'ala, then that has those details. Or whether or not the person, like we said, what he swore by, does he think solely that it conducts in this existence besides Allah ta'ala exclusively? That's major polytheism, nullifies Islam. And if what you swore by other than Allah by is just mere, for example, a habit that you're accustomed to doing, even though you don't totally absolutely believe that that thing has dominance and power and control like Allah Ta'ala, then here in this instance is what, everyone? It's minor polytheism. It's minor. Is it clear? That's the reason why we'll talk about, in fact, all those ahadith are going to come. But here in this instance, this is to give clarification of what, everyone? That this is the similarities, and this is what they agree at, and this is where they are somewhat different. Even though you'll find in a lot of different instances, they are considered similar, or they're considered the same in certain, like we said, certain contexts. So from that context is what we mentioned. You'll find that the dalil, just to give an example, and I'm going to leave here so we can start the new chapter. The dalil in which, I brought the wrong one out. Yeah, that's the wrong one. The dalil in which Allah Ta'ala talked about the mushrikeen, which is in Surah An-Nur. Allah Ta'ala says in his book, He says, وَأَقْسَمُوا بِاللَّهِ جَهْدَ أَيْمَانِهِمْ لَيَخْرُجُنْ. And to Allah Ta'ala reprimanded them and said, طَاعِةٌ مَعْرُوفًا. That Allah Ta'ala talked about how the people were swearing by Allah that they would do such and such. That they swore by Allah these weary type of oaths that they gave to Allah, wearing it out. Wallahi, wallahi, if you command us, we'll do such and such. If you command us, we'll do such and such. So notice this was talking about what? Talking about swearing. Wallahi. However, they use it to dalil for what? For taking a vow here. In this particular context. To show you here that what? That there is similarities to a vow and there is similarities to what? Swearing. There are similarities. Just to keep it simple. There are similarities. But in certain instances, like we said, as far as the aspect of the ibadah, the nadr is purely for Allah alone. And that giving it to other than Allah as far as a vow, is major polytheism. In regards to what? Swearing by Allah, which is a type of oath, of course, then it has some details in it. Based upon what is the ta'zeem, or the glorification or magnification of the person's heart in regards to what he swore by. If he has the belief and the conviction that totally that thing conducts in its existence alone, that's major polytheism, nullifies your Islam. If he swore by other than Allah, and he thinks that thing is just a what? It's just saying it, but it's not really. I truly believe that it has total dominance or power or any of those type of affairs, like how Allah Ta'ala has those characteristics, and that's what? It's minor polytheism. طيب. Is in the next chapter, Ya Ma'ash al-Ikhwa, is the chapter of what they call min ash-shirk al-isti'adha bi ghayrillah. Of polytheism is to seek refuge in other than Allah. Tabarak wa ta'ala. I believe I forgot my book. No problem. The new chapter now is like the rest of the chapters before it in regards that some of these ibadat to worship, no doubt, it's still taking place in a lot of Muslim countries. Not only that, you'll find that there are Muslims that even swear upon what? The grave of their mother, or I swear upon my dead children, or I swear upon my dead mother, and all these other affairs which are affairs that is from Jahiliyyah, meaning before, in the time of Islamic ignorance, before Islam came. That's from the affairs of Jahiliyyah. I'm not saying we're living in Jahiliyyah. That's from the affairs of Jahiliyyah. That the people used to swear by Allah Ta'ala, of course, and take vows. And still to this day, people are still swearing by other than Allah, and they're still taking vows for other than Allah. So do not think that this thing is something that is what? Not prevalent. It is still present all around the world in a lot of Muslim countries, out of ignorance. And the main people who are propagating this are Muslims, making war with Tawheed and making war with the correct ideology or the correct principles and the correct conviction and belief are Muslims who ascribe themselves to Islam from the Sufiya and the Jama'at al-Tabligh and other than them, who make war with these type of books and properly educating the people. So that's why they fall into what they fall into. So a person now saying there's nothing wrong with swearing by Badawi, what's wrong with that? Don't listen to the people who follow that Wahhabi nonsense. So a person that listens to that and they say, yeah, that is right. You know, I love Badawi. So I'm going to swear by him and make a vow to him. So now that goes back to those evil people who are misleading them. So that's what we said. These affairs are still present all around the world. So don't think that it's something that is not present. Rather, it's of the utmost importance that we educate and nurture the people upon these principles, because it's going on all around the world, still to this day. طيب. The next chapter, if you look in your books, is the chapter of what they call Bab min ash-shirk al-isti'adatu min ghayrillah, or bi ghayrillah. Bab min ash-shirk al-isti'adatu bi ghayrillah. The chapter of polytheism, of polytheism or idolatry, is seeking refuge in other than Allah Ta'ala. So this is another type of ibadah in which it's incumbent upon one to know that it's an exclusive right of Allah Ta'ala. As we know, all these are the rights of Allah, especially, and they're the most dangerous and the most serious, because these are the huquq, or the rights of Allah that is only for Him to be given. And He doesn't deserve, and what He deserves exclusively by Himself, and if it's given to other than Him, meaning al-isti'adah, of seeking refuge in other than Allah, then, like we said, that one has nullified his Islam. Does someone keep turning that light on and off in the sister's side? I keep seeing the light going on and off, on and off, on and off. But that's somebody has the door shut. Man, the door shut. I kept seeing the light going on. Maybe it's because the door is going up and up. Anyway, al-isti'adah, or what's considered seeking refuge, is another affair of ibadah, which is serious. If you notice in your books, ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, notice that the great Imam, all these different chapters that we've been covering, when do you see anything that's taken out of context of declaring Muslims to be unbelievers and destroying people and killing people and wreaking havoc and mass hysteria in society? When have we ever read anything of that sort so far? The only thing that we were reading is clarifying what polytheism is, what monotheism is. That's it. And this is from the affairs you'll find, like we said, from those from the deviant sects, whether they be from al-jama'at al-siyasiyya, the political groups, or they be from those so-called, quote-unquote, religious so-called groups from the Sufiya and the Turqa Sufiya, making war with these type of books. Not realizing that these type of books is actually going to be the reason for curing the ills of society's problems. To let you know how Shaitan, his plot, is going in the form of those deviant sects who are truly making war with society. They're not realizing that these are the books that's going to cure the ills of society and aid in repairing them and bringing the people together and bringing true reform to society. But instead, now they make war with these type of books and declaring that these types of books, or these type of educational type of scholastic-based books, is going to bring so-called division. No, it's not division. They don't realize that division, they try to change the word purification and change it to the word division. When it comes to Ahlul Sunnah, they say that the word division, in actuality, it means purification. Because purification brings division. Meaning it's going to separate the people who do not need to be in the ranks from the people who do need to be in the ranks. And clarify and cleanse who's who. So the people who you don't need in your ranks, they'll be out. And it'll be clear what they're upon, and the people that what? Are clear upon the truth will be known, and they'll be what? They'll be separated, and they will be made to be distinct amongst the people. Clear and distinct. So that's the reason why when they say tafriq, they want to change the word from purification to make the people not accept it, they call it division. You understand, everyone? And like I gave the example in the khutbah last week, the great Imam Sheikh Muhammad al-Jami, right now someone is all in this room and they say, Akhi, you causing fitna. People who is in this room who's upon minor purity, major impurity, and purity, state of purification. And everyone who was in this room. Nobody said anything. So the person who's came in the front of everyone who's upon major impurity, minor impurity, and state of purification, all of us just pray. So someone speaks out. Someone says, Yahi, nobody made wudu. So now I reply to you and said, Yahi, you causing fitna, shut up. We all want to pray. You causing fitna. How would you look at me? Like I lost my mind. Yeah, akhi, we just pray. I don't get in those affairs of purification. Let's all pray. You cause a fitness. Shut up. Keep your mouth shut. Actuality, what are you doing? You speaking out is causing what? Purification. Right or wrong? You speaking out is what? It's going to aid the Muslims and aid their what? Their ibadah to be accepted. And it's going to purify their ranks and aid them so they can do it in a manner that's acceptable with Allah. If that's in the affairs, and this is the reason why I want everybody to understand this example, is that's in affairs of wudu. What about affairs that's more greater than wudu, which is in Tawheed and Aqidah, unifying the people upon the proper Aqidah? That's even more what? It's even more important that the people be all purified of what purifies their beliefs or what taints their belief system. So now for someone to speak out and say, akhi, that's shit, that's bid'ah, that's shirk and all that, that's even more what? Even more awjab and more compulsory and more of a bigger duty than just telling the people they have to make wudu before the salah. There has to be someone to speak out. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So that's the thing that we mentioned in the khutbah last week. So now what takes place of when a person commands the good and forbids the evil and does and says what's correct, what's going to come is what? Purification. And that's the reason why we're what? We go through the likes of these matters which is connected with the affairs of worship because they're the most what? Dangerous. That's the reason why the huquq, or the rights of Allah, have to be what? Established and known with the people. So they can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala properly. And it's a form of purification for them. So they can be purified in the most detrimental of all what? Affairs which is in their belief system. So they can meet Allah ta'ala with a pure heart. So and now in regards to what is that type of purification is learning the affair of the ibadah which is pertaining to what? Al-isti'adha, which is what? Seeking refuge in Allah. That's another affair which is what? It's only from the huquq of Allah ta'ala. From the rights of Allah is that one only seeks refuge in Him subhanahu jalla fil ula. And what the meaning of al-isti'adha is we know, which we're going to get into a lot of the stories of the meaning of it. Excuse me. Is al-isti'adha is to take shelter or protection or refuge. Just to say that a person that he fleed away from what will give him harm or destroy him to his Lord and to the King who will give him protection and give him shelter and give him refuge. The affair of al-isti'adha is an affair of what? Is an affair which is of the qalb, is of the heart. It's mahallahu al-qalb. As we know, there's a lot of these affairs of worship that we've been covering so far. Of course, in some of them, is done verbally, but this particular one is amalun qalbi. This one is protected. This is of the actions of the what? The actions of the heart. Where it starts initially by the heart, but if the dua that one make, then that comes out verbally. But initially, it's supposed to be connected what? One's ta'zeem, of his glorification, his magnification. It starts initially with the heart, of course. Then it is done with the tongue, of course, no doubt. In which in the hadith, if you look in your books, comes the hadith of Khawla binti Hakim. It's in the same chapter. The hadith of Khawla binti Hakim, which is going to come. Al-isti'adha, like we said, is from those ibadat in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded that it only be for Him. And a lot of different ayats. You'll find it's done and made in a command form in certain contexts. You'll find that it comes in a command form. In a command form, in the context of the ayah. Abdullah, you with me? In the context of an ayah, you with me? Stay with me. In which you'll find where Allah Ta'ala says in His book, وَإِمَّا يَنْزَغَنَّكَ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ نَزْغٌ فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ. If there's some type of whisper from shaitan, It is in your what? The shaitan does to everyone. Notice Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ. Seek refuge in Allah. So that's a command for him. فَاسْتَعِذْ. Meaning, Allah is commanding that isti'adha only be for him alone. For verily al-isti'adha, this is one ayah in which you'll find that Allah Ta'ala has commanded that isti'adha only be exclusively, or that it's an affair that's exclusive for him. It's from the rights of Allah only. So that's one ayah clarifying that what everyone. And another ayah which we recite all the time, which I think everyone knows, which is Surah what? An-Nas. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ مِنْ شَرِّ مَا خَلَقَ. Also, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ مَلِكِ النَّاسِ إِلَهِ النَّاسِ إلى آخر الآيات. So notice in the ayah, Surah Al-Falaq and Surah Al-Nas, Allah Ta'ala says, say, قُلْ أَعُوذُ أَعُوذُ أَعُوذُ. That's from what everyone? Al-Isti'adha. Which is what? That this is an aspect of worship which Allah Ta'ala commanded that to seek refuge with what? With Him alone. By the Lord of the people. And then one, by the Lord of the dawn. Notice Allah Ta'ala in that ayah still combined between Tawheed, Rububiyyah, and Uluhiyyah together. There's no escaping it. When Allah Ta'ala says, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ. A'udhu, that's a type of Tawheed, what everyone? Tawheed what? Al-Uluhiyyah. No, Rabb. No. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ. So that's what? So Rububiyyah. So Allah Ta'ala mentioned worship and the reason why you're worshiping Him, because He's the what? You know He's the Lord that can give you that refuge and that protection alone. That's why I commanded it what? In the same context, you'll find there's no escaping it. Well, Allah Ta'ala, when He lays down a worship, you'll find in most cases, in the same ayat, there's going to be Rububiyyah mentioned in it somewhere. To establish the fact that He's the one that deserves that fair worship alone. In regards to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had mentioned and said, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. Say, seek refuge in the Lord of the Lord of the people. The Lord of the people to the end of the ayat is also command form to establish and show what everyone? To show what? That al-isti'adha is only exclusively for Him tabarak wa ta'ala. So all of this is from the other ayats which we're going to mention, inshaAllah, how even the jinn themselves, the jinn, in which, as we know, is an unseen creation that sees us, but we do not see them usually. Usually you cannot see the jinn, even though they can be seen in certain instances, as they can come in different forms. They could come in the form of a snake, in the form of different animals. And in certain small occasions they can be seen. In certain occasions. Not all the time, but most cases they cannot be seen. But we'll find, and we talked about even what the different stories, even what the great Imam Hamid al-Liwal Jarh al-Ta'dil Shaykh Rabi' had put in his book called Ar-Ruqa al-Shar'iyyah. You'll find in that particular story, he gave stories of what him and his friends saw, of when they saw something very strange with certain men that looked very odd. And he was very skinny, and he had two little kids beside him, and he said that he was what? Bending over in a manner that was extremely strange, until they said that there was a jinn. So in certain instances, they are what? They can be seen, but it's very, very rare. But also in the origin is that the jinn, they're called the jinn because they what? Because of what they call istijnan, meaning al-tasattur wal-ikhtifa. Why do we call it the jinn? Because the actual name jinn means something to be hidden. It means something to be hidden. The origin of the word jinn from ijtinan, يعني tasattur, الذي لا يرى, meaning from something that is hidden and you can't be seen. That's what the word jinn means. You can't see it. It's been covered up. What's a covering? Well, you can't see it. It's not there. Or you can't see with the eye, of course. So the origin of the jinn is what, everyone? That they cannot be what? They cannot be seen. لا يرى. في الغالب. في غالب الأحيان لا يرى الجن. إلا في بعض الأحوال النادرة جدا. طيب. So in this regard, that the jinn themselves have been commanded with the monotheism and the Tawheed of Allah. Is there prophets and messengers from the jinn? هل هناك رسل والأنبياء من الجن? You'll find that the great Imam, Sheikh Muhammad Amal Jami, rahimahullah, the great Imam, said that there are no prophets and messengers from the jinn. They are only what they call munzirin. They are only warners to the jinn. Based upon the ayah in which Allah Ta'ala says in his book, وَإِذْ صَرَفْنَا إِلَيْكَ نَفْرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقُرْآنَ فَلَمَّا حَضَرُوا قَالُوا أَنصِتُوا فَلَمَّا قُضِيَ وَلَّوْا إِلَى قَوْمِهِمْ مُنذِرِينَ فقالوا يا قومنا أجيبوا داعي الله وآمنوا به يغفر لكم من ذنوبكم ويجركم من عذاب أليم. To the end of the ayah. So notice in the ayah that Allah Ta'ala says in his book, he says, when the Prophet ﷺ was going through those very, very, very turmoil times, alayhi salatu wasalam, where his uncle died, Abu Talib, and also Khadija, radiallahu anha, and Hamzah. Of course, and we know Hamzah. Hamzah had died, his uncle. And the people also likewise was what? They was also ostracizing him, alayhi salatu wasalam, treating him very badly, even though they know truthfully what he was upon was correct. Treating him very harshly and harming him. And like we said, those who were beloved him and giving him the best aid and comfort at that time, all had died. It was killed. When the Prophet ﷺ went to Ta'if, and we know that they rejected his message until we know what happened when they had harmed him until certain parts of his body was bleeding, especially his feet, until the two angels that came down. It says they were called the malaika, of the ones who want to call or bring down the rocks upon them, who wanted to bring what they call al-akhshabain. Al-akhshabain. Where they asked him to what? If you want, then we will send down the mountains send them, of making the mountains collapse upon them, O Messenger of Allah, by your own command. But the Prophet ﷺ had denied and rejected it. He said, no, I will want that will be from amongst their loins the people who will worship Allah alone. That was it. But at any rate, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ was going through these different trying times, or these trivial times in his life. Until when he was going back from Ta'if to Mecca, there's a place between that, there was a valley, alayhi salatu wasalam. And when he entered that valley, alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah Ta'ala allowed his message to be heard by the jinn. Until the jinn had came and they had what? The Prophet ﷺ prayed Fajr and he woke up. And when he woke up, alayhi salatu wasalam, he started reciting the Quran until the jinn started listening to it. And that's the ayah where Allah Ta'ala says in his book, وَإِذْ صَرَفْنَا إِلَيْكَ نَفْرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقُرْآنَ فَلَمَّا حَضَرُوهُ قَالُوا أَنصِتُوا. Listen to it. He said, فَلَمَّا قُضِيَ وَلَّوْا إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِمْ مُنذِرِينَ. He says, when it was finished and concluded, they went back to their people, turning back, warning. That ayah, based upon that, you'll find the great Imam, Sheikh Muhammad Amal Jabiri, he mentions, it says that there are no rusul and anbiya from the jinn, only munzirin, only warners. So when they heard from the Prophet ﷺ, when they heard that message from the Prophet ﷺ, they went back to their people warning them. So the jinn from amongst them, which is the correct understanding, is that there's no rusul and anbiya from the jinn, only what they call munzirin, warners, people that give warning. Because when the jinn heard what, everyone, from the message from the Prophet, when they heard the Quran, as soon as they heard it, they believed, those group of the jinn, they believed in it. They heard it, they believed in it. So they went back to their people and started telling them of what they heard. So showing that what, everyone, that from the jinn from the jinn, there are only warners, no prophets and messengers. Just mundhirin, mundhir. Meaning the person that's on warning gets warning. Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? As we know, the jinn, likewise, have been commanded with the monotheism of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are from the jinn, likewise, who are muwahideen. They're from the jinn who are upon Tawheed. They are from the jinn who are upon Tawheed and who are upon the Sunnah. And also followed the Prophet ﷺ from Ahl Sunnah, and who are Salafi. From the jinn, yes, they are. They have embraced upon the proper Aqidah. Well, we don't know that because it's from the affairs of the unseen. So nobody can try to look for a jinn that's Salafi. You understand, everyone? But however, like we said, there are from the jinn who are from our brothers, who are from Ahl Sunnah, who are from Ahl Haqq. They are. Yes, they are. Because they've been commanded to what? They've been commanded to embrace the message of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the first thing that they said, even when they established, and they also likewise have wala wal bara. They also established the qa'idah of showing their allegiance to the people of Tawheed and their disallegiance to those who disbelieve in it. How? If you go back to the ayat, which is in Surah Al-Jinn, Allah Ta'ala says in the book, He said, قُلْ أُوحِيَ إِلَيَّ أَنَّهُ اسْتَمَعَ نَفَرٌ مِنَ الْجِنِّ فَقَالُوا إِنَّا سَمِعْنَا قُرْآنًا عَجَبًا يَهْدِي إِلَى الرُّشْدِ فَآمَنَّا بِهِ وَلَن نُشْرِكَ بِرَبِّنَا أَحَدًا وَأَنَّهُ تَعَالَى جَدُّ رَبِّنَا ما اتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا وأنه كان يقول سفيهنا على الله شططا وأنا ظننا أن لن يقول الإنس والجن على الله كذبا. For the first part of the ayat, if you notice, Allah Ta'ala talks about, or Allah Ta'ala in his book, that Allah Ta'ala revealed to the Prophet ﷺ the statement, or the ayat that the jinn were what? Heard the Quran. And they heard something amazing. If you notice in the ayat, if it talks about how it says that we have what? We have freed ourselves from shirk, and we have freed ourselves from, likewise, we will not set up any partners with our Lord. Then they started now criticizing their people and talking bad about them. So they didn't only freed themselves from polytheism, they started criticizing, condemning their own people by saying to them, the jinn in the ayat, what did it say? Saying about, he said they were group from our jinn, from the people. Everything all right? It says, وَأَنَّهُ تَعَالَى جَدُّ رَبِّنَا مَا اتَّخَذَ صَاحِبَةً وَوَلَدًا وَأَنَّهُ كَانَ يَقُولُ سَفِيهُنَا عَلَى اللَّهِ شَطَطًا. So notice they started discrediting, condemning their own people. He said the foolish people from amongst us started saying lies and injustice and oppression upon Allah. And that Allah Ta'ala did not take on a child, nor did he take on a female companion. So they're even from the jinn, from the unseen, who denied that what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not die on the cross like the Christians say. So from the jinn who even deny that. They only accept that belief. Where they even mention it in the ayah clearly. Rejecting that Allah ta'ala doesn't have any children, nor did he have a female companion or a female partner. So then it goes on in the ayah where they seen them criticizing and condemning their people for what? Setting up partners with Allah. Until it says in the ayat, lastly, where it says, if you look in the ayat, which is a sort of the jinn, I don't think it's in your books, though. I think the first part is in there, but it's not the whole ayat. The first part is where I mentioned, we'll stop here, where it says, وَأَنَّهُ كَانَ يَقُولُ سَفِيهُنَا عَلَى اللَّهِ شَطَطًا وَأَنَّا ظَنَنَّا أَن لَن يَقُولَ الْإِنسَ وَالْجِنُّ عَلَى اللَّهِ كَذِبًا. This is the part of the ayat right here. وَأَنَّهُ كَانَ رِجَالٌ مِنَ الْإِنسِ يَعُوذُونَ بِرِجَالٍ مِنَ الْجِنِّ فَزَادُهُمْ رَهَقًا. So now this is the part in the ayat where Allah Ta'ala says, and that there were men from the ins, that they used to seek refuge in men from the jinn. So it increased them in what? It created them in more misguidance, and increased them in more what? Rahaqa. And one narration we'll talk about the meaning of the ayat, that it means fear and horror and fright, depending on how the context of which we'll talk about in a couple of minutes, inshallah. But from the affairs of the jinn in this whole ayah, in which you'll find that the jinn themselves are talking about affairs that take place with the unseen. And like we said with the naked eye, the jinn see us, but we do not see them. which is an ayah in which Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala also says in this book, in Surah Al-A'raf, where Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala says, إِنَّهُ يَرَاكُمْ هُوَ وَقَبِيلُهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا تَرَوْنَهُمْ إِنَّا جَعَلْنَا الشَّيَاطِينَ أَوْلِيَاءَ لِلَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ وَإِذَا فَعِلُوا فَاحِشَةً قَالُوا وَجَدْنَا آبَاءَنَا قَالُوا, it's the ayah where it says, وَإِنْ فَعِلُوا فَاحِشَةً قَالُوا وَجَدْنَا عَلَيْهِ آبَاءَنَا وَاللَّهُ أَمْرَنَا بِهَا قال إن الله لا يأمر بالفحشاء أتقولون على الله ما لا تعلمون قل أمر ربي بالقسط. That's no problem, don't worry about it. Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, cool. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, he says that the shaitan sees you and his what? His minions, where you do not see them. Verily we made the shayateen awliya, friends and protectors and aiders of those who do not believe. Those who are upon kufr and polytheism. So Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala pairs the shayateen up with them. It makes them what? Awliya, protectors and aiders of one another, protectors and leaders over one another. So that ayah, oh, you got Qadi there? All right, tafadal. You got the recitation on there. Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. All right, Abdullah. بهذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آتي محمود الوصي وبعث مقام محمود الذي وعده وقد أجمع على أنه لا يجوز الاستعاذة بغير الله تبارك وتعالى لا يجوز الاستعاذة بغير الله طيب. So notice that the ayah in which the author had used in his book, rahimahullah, rahmatu wasi'a, wa jazahullahu anna wa anna al-muslimin khayr al-jaza', you'll find that he used the ayah, which is in Surah Al-Jinn. We said that there were men that used to seek, there were men from amongst mankind who used to seek refuge in men from the jinn, and it increased them in rahaqa. Rahaqa, depending on the ayah, of course, that the jinn increased them, meaning mankind, in more horror and fright and terror. That's one meaning of the ayah, of course. That they used to seek refuge in who was considered the supreme or the most dominant of the jinn in that particular valley, if they descended in that valley, in that desolate valley, where there were no people. في واد قفر, as they say, إذا نزلوا في واد قفر كانوا يستعيذون بعظيم ذلك الوادي من الجن. He said that if they descended in that particular desolate place, being alone, they would seek protection in that particular so-called dominant or prominent one from the jinn. And that particular jinn would increase them in more what? Fear and horror and fright. To think that they were actually giving them protection, but they were actually doing that in order for what? So they can increase them in seeking refuge of them even more and seeking their protection, so-called, to fool them. Until you'll find that the most stern or the most strongest they considered from mankind was even a state of fright and horror and fear when they would seek refuge in that particular jinn. So that was the meaning of one of the meanings of the ayat. To a point where it says, وَذَاكَ أَنَّ الرَّجُلِ مِنَ الْعَرَبِ كَانَ إِذَا أَمْسَى بِوَادٍ قَفْرٍ وَخَافَ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ قَالَ أَعُوذُ بِسَيِّدِ هَذَا الْوَادِ مِنْ سُفَهَاءِ قَوْمِهِ يُرِيدُ كَبِيرَ الْجِنِّ وقد أجمع العلماء على أنه لا يجوز الاستعاذة بغير الله. He said that is because the man from the Arab, that if they came upon the evening and it was in a desolate desert or a desolate valley that was far, it was remote, it was dark, or what have you, that they will have fear upon themselves and they would get fright or horror and they would seek refuge from the so-called prominent of that valley, from the foolish ones of their people, meaning from the jinn. Meaning that he wanted the most dominant of all those jinn to protect them. In which you'll find that Ahl Ilm say that it is a consensus amongst Ahl Ilm that it's not permissible to seek refuge in other than Allah Ta'ala. So number one, ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, you'll find that these were from affairs of Jahiliyyah. They are from affairs from min al-umur al-Jahiliyyah. In which we know that the Prophet ﷺ came to what? To destroy, disseminate, eradicate. And these were from their affairs of Jahiliyyah, that they used to seek refuge in other than Allah Ta'ala. So all these ayats, especially in Surah Al-Jinn and other than them, which we said in Surah Al-Nas and Surah Al-Falaq and other than them, all established that the affair of al-isti'adha is only and exclusively for Allah Ta'ala alone. And that if one gives it to other than Allah Ta'ala, which is an ijma', a consensus of Ahl Ilm, if one does that, then he has nullified his Islam. انتقض إسلامه إذا استعاذ بغير الله. That his Islam is what? Is nullified. You'll find, ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, another ayah which is tremendous, in which Imam al-Baghawi and Imam al-Sa'di, Shaykh AbdurRahman al-Sa'di rahimahullah, and also Imam al-Baghawi, Imam al-Salafi put his tafsir, and also likewise Imam Ibn Kathir, in which we'll talk about the ayah in which Allah Ta'ala spoke about how on the day of resurrection Allah is going to speak to the jinn and say that you have misled a lot of people in this world. Is Allah Ta'ala on the day of resurrection is going to say, Ya ma'ashar al-jinn, قد استكثرت من الإنس فقال أولياؤه من الإنس ربنا استمتع بعضنا ببعض وأجلت أجلنا الذي أجلت لنا وبلغنا أجلنا الذي أجلت لنا قال النار مثواكم خالدين فيها إلا ما شاء الله إن ربك حكيم عليم وكذلك نولي بعض الظالمين بعضا بما كانوا يكسبون. Listen to this particular ayah. I think it's a Surah Al-An'am. It's a Surah Al-An'am. I forgot the number. I'll get it after the class. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said this tremendous ayah. Allah ta'ala says He's going to address the jinn, going to gather all of them together. He's going to say to the jinn, He says, "Oh jinn," He says, "you have acquired and misled a lot of people. You have misled them, misguided them, called them, misled them, beguiled them, tricked them, fooled them, to the end of it. As a result of it, you put them in an affair or in the position of destruction, of halak. You destroyed them." طيب. Notice Allah Ta'ala when He says address the jinn, He said their followers and their awliya from mankind are going to say a statement about them and their relationship between them and the jinn. I want everyone to be attentive to this particular tafsir. Listen to this. They said that the ins will say to the jinn in the ayah, رَبَّنَا اسْتَمْتَعَ بَعْضُنَا بِبَعْضٍ وَبَلَغْنَا أَجَلَنَا الَّذِي أَجَّلْتَ لَنَا. Oh Allah, we enjoy or partake in enjoyment of one another. partake in enjoyment with one another. Look to the al-istinbat, how the ulama extracted the ayah. From this is to establish that isti'adha is what is from the worship of Allah based upon the tafsir of this ayah. How? So we have the ayah which is in Surah Al-Falaq or Surah Al-Nas, Surah Al-Jinn, of course we just covered. There's another ayah, Surah Al-An'am, based upon the tafsir of this ayah. Listen carefully. O Allah, we partake in enjoying one another in this dunya, and we reached our appointed time that you set for us. Notice Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, your dwelling place will be hell, abiding therein forever, except what Allah wills. Very, your Lord is all knowledgeable, all wise. Hence, we paired together and paired them up together, the zalimeen. We put them all together because of what they acquired and what they have earned with their own hands. Listen to the tafsir of the ayah. If you notice in the ayahs in Imam al-Baghawi and also Ibn Kathir that they mentioned this in light of this ayah, they said that the human beings will say, oh our Lord, we partake in enjoying one another in this dunya. Listen to one of the affairs that Ibn Abbas mentioned and said. He says, as far as the jinn enjoying mankind, taking or partaking in enjoyment with mankind, is when they used to take refuge in them and seek refuge in them and seeking their protection in the affair of isti'adha. So that's how one affair they want, based upon the tafsir from the Sahaba, of the tafsir of the Sahaba. That's how they extracted that isti'adha is what? Is worship. Because as a result of them human beings seeking refuge, and the jinn, and they had taken enjoyment in that, they went into the hellfire. Because Allah Ta'ala said in the last part of the ayah, مَثْوَاكُمُ النَّارِ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا. Your dwelling place is hell, abiding therein forever. That's one of how the jinn had enjoyed or partaken in enjoyment with mankind. Based upon what? By them seeking refuge in them. So that's one type of enjoyment. That's one type. There's another type of enjoyment also likewise. You'll find that the ulama tafsir, if you go back to even Kathir, also Imam al-Baghawi, so you even switch it. How did mankind enjoy the jinn? I think that's self-explanatory. How mankind enjoyed the jinn. How did they partake in enjoyment with the jinn? Meaning, as a result, when they sought refuge in Allah, gave them worship, the jinn started servicing them in certain affairs. From those affairs of how they also, likewise, used the jinn and enjoyed the jinn, partake in magic. Practicing and indulging in magic. Indulging in sihr and sha'wada. And also likewise of what is pertaining to the affairs of knowing the unseen, which is from what they call qira'at al-kahf or al-kahana. Of fortune telling, crystal ball reading. All these affairs is all connected with what? How the human beings used to partake in enjoyment with the jinn. From sihr, sha'wada, kahana, qira'at al-kaf, ilm al-mughayyabat. All of them are affairs of the meaning of the ayah. رَبَّنَا اسْتَمْتَعَ بَعْضُنَا بِبَعْضٍ وَبَلَغْنَا أَجَلَنَا الَّذِي أَجَّلْتَ لَنَا. So if a person partakes in these affairs, notice that the ending result is مَثْوَاكُمُ النَّارِ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ اللَّهِ. He says your dwelling place is the hellfire. Because you guys partook in one another, I want to see you guys, but the jinn partook in the human beings, and human beings partook in the jinn. You guys wanted to partake in shirk and isti'adha and magic and palm reading, and also knowing the unseen. This is what the ending result is. The ending result is that what? You're in the hellfire. Forever. Abiding therein forever. You'll find that it says in the ayahs, even Ibn Kathir, Imam al-Baghawi mentioned about how the jinn and the ins, they all partake in enjoying one another, also likewise in all these affairs we just mentioned, and in regards to if they submitted in worship to the jinn as an exchange, the jinn will start to service the human being. and of servicing them in certain affairs and doing certain things for them, of something of gaining a worldly mundane thing to attain, on the condition that they what? That they worship them. And in exchange, they will start to service them. In which, like we said, we see is self-explanatory, which is evident, which is the reality, what we see with a lot of different affairs of what? The non-Muslims, what they partake in, especially in affairs of music, and especially in affairs of magic, and especially in affairs of what? So-called psychic teller, or psych reader, or psychic so-called, or palm reader, or what have you. All these are connected with the affairs of what? Of the jinn, which Allah Ta'ala had what? Had said clearly that this is the meaning of what? Of them enjoying one another in the dunya. And as a result of it, Allah Ta'ala said, your dwelling place will be hell, abiding therein forever. Except what Allah wills. I'll get inside the meaning of that. Except what Allah wills, because that ayah is tremendous. Except what Allah wills. Verily your Lord is all knowledgeable and all wise. Then Allah Ta'ala says in His book, وَكَذَلِكَ نُوَلِّي بَعْضَ الظَّالِمِينَ بَعْضًا بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. Verily those who are oppressors, we pair them and made them all awliya one another. Nuwalli. We made them awliya. Meaning oppressors of this world. Of those who's pertaining. Either from the jinn or from mankind. That if you commit evil, you're a person that's a zalim, which will be, as a compensation, Allah Ta'ala will pair you up with someone who's evil similar to you to encourage you to do it even more. And likewise, the person who is from the awliya of At-Tawheed and the awliya of Allah, same thing. If a person is truly having sidq, inshaAllah, Allah likewise will allow and pair him up with someone who's upon Tawheed similar to him, encouraging him, and also likewise inciting him to what? Encourage him to do it. And showing him to the path upon it, and helping him and aiding him and staying steadfast and firm upon it. He said, كَذَلِكَ نُوَلِّي بَعْضَ الظَّالِمِينَ. We made them all awliya because of what they used to earn. So what you earn of good, Allah Ta'ala will give it to you. What you earn of evil, Allah Ta'ala will also be a recompense as a result of what? Pairing someone also up along with you, someone evil similar to you, to encourage you to keep doing it. So these ayat, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, based upon how the Salaf extracted the ayah into here, how the Salaf extracted the meaning of the ayah is how they showed that isti'adha also is from the worship of Allah based upon the understanding of the ayah of when it's mentioned in it, what it says, that we enjoy one another. We took enjoyment of one another. Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? We'll stop here because we got to play Maghrib. Any questions about the lesson so far? تفضل. That also comes from the word genie. It comes jinni. Genie. The genie in the bottle. You rub it 3 times, it'll give you 3 wishes. That's all from those affairs. Those affairs are shirk. Genie means jinni. It's all from those affairs. All those affairs are jahiliyyah. كل هذه الأمور من الأمور الجاهلية الشركية. All of them are affairs of what? Shirkiyah. A lot of people say genie. Genie means jinni. It's a jinn. I don't know whether you find a dream of genie. I dream of genie. Really? You dream of genie? You dream of a jinni? I dream of a jinni, huh? طيب. تفضل. I put that on my mother, or I put that on everything I have when they want to swear by Allah. The Prophet ﷺ made it clear, "Man halafa falyahlif billah aw liyaskut." واضح. Prophet ﷺ said, clear as day. Whoever swears, then let him swear by Allah or be quiet. It's clear. As far as those other statements, I swear upon my mother's grave. I swear upon, may Allah make me a Jew if make my children a Jew, and all this other stuff that people say. Like Abu Usama said in his refutation, when Abu Uwais refuted him. All this another, when Abu Uwais, rahimahullah, refuted Abu Usama Dhahabi. And he said all that nonsense on that tape about may Allah make my children may make my children a Jew and all this other nonsense. But at any rate, all these other things that you swear by, Prophet ﷺ made it clear. If one swears, then let him swear by Allah or be quiet. All these other ibadat, all these different statements, I swear upon my mother's grave, I swear upon everything that I have, I swear on my children that may Allah make them Jews if I'm not truthful. All this nonsense, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, keep it away and keep your mouth shut. If you're going to swear by Allah, keep your mouth shut. No more, no less. Is it clear? Other than that, now you're going to put yourself in a state of what? Of something trivial. Something that could be vital where it comes as a result of your religion being nullified if you're not clear, if you're not careful. Any other questions, everyone? About the lesson? About the lesson. As far as for those who make up the month of Ramadan, this is incumbent upon them, let them make up the month of Ramadan. Let them make up their fast for the month of Ramadan, because that is something that's wajib. You don't, لا تقدم المستحب على الواجب بل عليك أن تقدم الواجب على المستحب. Fasting in the first 9 days of the Hijjah is mustahab. Fasting and making your month of Ramadan is what, everyone? Is wajib. So it's incumbent upon the person to fulfill what is the rights of Allah, which is obligatory, before you do what is highly recommended. Do what is wajib. Give precedence to that. Give precedence to that first. As far as these 9 days of the Hijjah, also I remind the brothers too, I remind them, what's also been mashru', which is a sunnah al-mahjura, what is a left off sunnah, is the takbirat, during the 9 days of the Hijjah. The takbirat. Takbirat that's done anywhere, anytime, ya ma'ashal ikhwa. It's not just dubr al-salawat. It's not just the end of the salawat or aqib al-salawat al-khams, kama yafa'aluhu ammat al-nas. So the takbirat are not just restricted to after the salawat, it's for everywhere. In the aswaq, in your house. Rather, you even find Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, he gave a tremendous fa'idah. He said you should even make it in your house. He said it could be a reason for why even the jinn would be, it would keep the jinn out your house. By mentioning Allah ta'ala and making takbirat in the house. Because we know that the jinn, when they hear the remembrance of Allah, yankamish, or they shrink and they go away. He said that even at the takbirat in these days, you should even try to do it in your house. Because the remembrance of it will allow the jinn to go away and keep the jinn out your house. So don't forget about the mashru' or was been legislated for when the first 10 days of the Hijjah, when it starts, is to make the takbirat. And it's not just only for the Eid, it's for the whole 9 days of the Hijjah. So the person should do it not just only at the salawat, everywhere, your car, your house, everywhere. These are things that people have left off of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Which you'll find that Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Umar used to what? Used to say it and be vocal with it. And allow their voices to be raised when they're doing it. To the point where even the people used to now so-called what? Follow behind them. As it comes in the narration. Not simultaneously, like the Jama'iyyan, like the Sufiyyah. No. They would say it in the manner which everyone was doing it, but not like harmoniously or simultaneously. No. Meaning that they all just did it, not on the same sequence. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha. No. Everybody say Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, Walillahi alhamd. That manner. But not simultaneously like the Sufis. Allahu Akbar, like everybody's doing it together. La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, Walillahi alhamd. La. Everybody doing it in a manner, like we said, they on their own what? Vocal, individual type of statement of saying it. That's also that we said, Ya ma'ashal ikhwats, in these 9 days of, don't forget, I forgot to mention in the khutbah, that's a sunnah that's mahjura, it's left off. Nobody does it, rarely. And it's been authentically reported by the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba. Nobody does it these days. Unless, like we said, if you're in the store and you fear that they might try to hurt you, that's something different. But other than that, what's the problem doing in your car? Who's going to hurt you while you're in your car? Who's going to hurt you while you're in your house? Somebody going to hurt you? Try to do it in your house, do it in your car, do it amongst your kids. This would be a nice sunnah, a revival of a sunnah of what is left off. I'm sorry, tafadhal. Absolutely. For a person now that wants to make up those days, it could be done on the first 9 days of the Hijjah. Absolutely. Absolutely, no doubt. Like we said, the person should give precedence to what is wajib over what's mustahab. The person should give what is wajib over that which is mustahab. Tafadhal. Talbiyah. Oh, takbirat. Takbirat. That's what I was saying. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ar-Razzaaq. A lot of mentioning members of Allah. Once the first day of the Hijjah, even the night when it comes in. I think it's probably tomorrow night, isn't it? Maybe. They know about Dhuhr tomorrow. So first 10 days of the Hijjah starts maybe inshallah tomorrow we should know. But during these 39 days, brothers, if you can fast all 9, try to fast at least 5. 5 days out of this is the most beloved days to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala these days. أحب الأيام إلى الله تبارك وتعالى. ما من أيامنا العمل الصالح فيهن أحب إلى الله من هذه العشر. قالوا ولا الجهاد في سبيل الله يا رسول الله قال ولا الجهاد في سبيل الله إلا رجل خرج بماله ونفسه ولم يرجع من ذلك بشيء. He says not even the jihad in the cause of Allah, not even jihad of doing righteous action in those days is more beloved to Allah than jihad. So what's the most virtuous of righteous actions except what will come to a person's mind? Except siyam. So siyam is a righteous action. It's al-amal al-salih. So a person should fast in those days of al-Hijjah. Tremendous. It'd be a tremendous virtuous act, especially in that day. Also, sadaqah that's given in that day is better than sadaqah that which you give in the rest of the days during the year. All those are things that are what a lot of us are heedless of, especially in these 10 days of the Hijjah. Shaitan always thinks, oh, it's just some other days during the days of the year. Just keep it like how we do it. No. You should look at those days at their days are the best days of the year. The Prophet ﷺ said even jihad is not better than the righteous action in those days. How much emphasis you need to show the virtues of those days. ولعظم شرفها الأيام التي نحن على وشك دخولها ونكاد ندخلها أو نوشك أن ندخلها بعد يوم إن شاء الله بإذن الله أظن أنها ستبدأ غدا بإذن الله تبارك وتعالى في المساء إن شاء الله. بقي سؤال. Is there any question left? Any questions? Anything online? طيب هذا وصلى الله وسلم بارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.